Billionaire's life transformed when he revealed his assistant's amazing hidden secret after over. Jake Lawson stood at the towering window of his posh corner office, the skyline of New York City sprawling before him like a million twinkling stars. Wealth, power, and influence surrounded him, yet within the gilded walls, an ache stirred in his chest. He was a titan in the business world, his empire meticulously curated through cold calculations and relentless deals, yet the emptiness gnawed at him relentlessly. Maria, his loyal assistant, hovered in the background, a silent warrior braving the relentless grind of corporate America. To him, she was remarkable, but he had long forgotten what it felt like to connect with someone on a deeper level. One ordinary day, while sorting through endless reports, Maria stumbled upon a discrepancy buried beneath a mountain of numbers. It was glaring, a financial scandal threatening to explode and rip the fabric of Jake's empire. A cold sweat trickled down her spine as her heart raced, fear locking her breath. Her job was everything. How could she expose such a damning secret? She longed to bring it to Jake but hesitated, questioning if she truly had the right. As Maria walked into the office, the tension deepened. Jake waved her in, dismissing her initial concerns with a wave of his hand. "We'll sort this out, let us stay focused on profits," he said, his voice steady, but inside, the shadows of his Bronx upbringing loomed. Each dismissive wave echoed with fear, the fear of losing everything he had built, of confronting the boy who once lived hand to mouth, grappling with integrity now teetering on a precipice. In a surprising moment of vulnerability, Maria shared something she had been crafting: a design layout that maximized not just efficiency, but beauty within endless concrete. To Jake's astonishment, her passion shone bright in her drawings, igniting a spark he had thought long extinguished. For a fleeting second, he was transported to a time where creativity breathed life into pursuit, and he felt a flicker of admiration. But then he recoiled, burdened with the weight of expectations. A titan couldn't be distracted by dreams that didn't pay the bills. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Underneath the professional facade, something deeper within Jake began to awaken, stirred by this single revelation about Maria's hidden talent. Unbeknownst to him, she was the granddaughter of a renowned architect, legacies intertwined with systemic obstacles. The idea raced through Jake's mind. What if he supported her dreams? What if they transcended corporate monotony together? But then, the scandal loomed, a dark cloud casting shadows on their aspirations. The stakes escalated. Every day, the pressure mounted. Would he protect his empire, or could he dare to embrace change? In agony, Jake questioned his path, angst wrestling with ambition. Suddenly facing a maxed-out emotional toll, Marco watched Maria explain her designs, her eyes alive with fervor yet uncertainty coursed through him like venom. The world outside was relentless, challenging every choice he considered. And as he gazed at her, doubt washed over him. Could he truly face the judgment should he choose her? Standing at the crossroad between old habits and a chance for redemption, Jake was caught in a tumult of confusion, battling the oppression of silence against the echo of dreams. The future beckoned with tantalizing possibility, yet horror lingered at the door. What would be on the line if he leapt? A decision waited, and with it, a new beginning hovered just out of reach, mirroring the skyline that promised everything yet disclosed nothing. As the days wore on, the financial scandal festered like a wound beneath the surface of Jake's empire, a constant reminder of the precarious nature of his reign. He moved through meetings and calls with mechanical precision, his mind divided between the numbers on the spreadsheets and Maria's passionate vision that had ignited a forgotten spark within him. Each waning day became a delicate balancing act, a struggle to maintain composure while confronting the labyrinthine web of betrayal entwined within his company's soul. Yet, amidst the clamor of corporate ambition, Jake found himself increasingly drawn into the orbit of Maria's artistic aspirations. Her designs, a harmonious blend of functionality and artistry, reminded him of a time lost, a time when he was ready to dream. It was a sensation he had banished long ago, shoved far into the recesses of his mind as he built his empire on cold calculations and profit margins. Maria's revelation dangled tantalizingly before him. Her talent was a flicker of light in his pallid existence, yet it also presented an existential risk. On one particularly suffocating afternoon, the breakthrough came unexpectedly. Jake called Maria into the office, the weight of both his rising concern and newfound curiosity resting on his shoulders. He could no longer ignore the disconnect. "We need to talk about those designs," he started, his voice quiet but resolute. He watched her posture shift from timid acceptance to a slight uncoiling as hope surfaced in her gaze. I've been thinking a lot," she began, her voice wavering. "If we could transform just one space within the company, it could highlight our commitment to innovation and community." "It could, I know." Jake interrupted gently, conscious of how vulnerable he felt. "Let us not cancel your ideas this time. I want to see what you can really do." Her eyes widened, a mix of disbelief and cautious optimism. They spent the next few hours going over her sketches. Each stroke unveiled a world outside the confines of profitability, a world where art mingled with aspirations. The moment blossomed, the possibility of a collaboration felt revolutionary to Jake. But lurking behind each smile and nod was an ever-present shadow, the impending scandal that threatened to rupture everything. Doubt tainted the bloom of collaboration. Jake's mind raced with implications. As he observed Maria's passionate presentation, snippets of conversation from the past weeks gnawed at him. If his competitors caught wind of the scandal, if investors pulled out, if he failed to act decisively now, what would become of everything he'd built? The weight of integrity dragged him down like an anchor, revealing the stark contrast of his burgeoning dreams against the looming threat of exposure. "Can we afford the risk?" he questioned quietly, a breakthrough dawning as he faced his own fears. It dawned on him then that perhaps saving his empire required more than just sweeping the scandal under the rug. Perhaps being a leader wasn't just about being ruthless, it was about fostering potential. Their eyes locked, and in that shared silence, unspoken understanding flowed between them. If Jake chose to embrace the unknown, to back Maria, he would step onto a path leading not into destruction but towards authenticity. But was he prepared to face both her potential and the fury of collapse if it all fell apart? The pulse of future choices thrummed in the air, and just as uncertainty climbed the walls of his mind, the thought of the scandal loomed even larger. The moment had arrived. Could he truly confront the impending chaos within his empire, or would fear hold him hostage? A storm approached, and each choice he made might transfigure not only his destiny but also the very nature of the legacy he held dear. As Jake contemplated his next steps, a new idea struck him. Perhaps it was time to uncover the truth behind the numbers, the source of the financial scandal. The answer could redefine everything he knew about his empire. But would seeking the truth be the catalyst for transformation, or the very force that unraveled his existence? The clock was ticking, and the fog of uncertainty thickened around him. As dawn broke the following day, the sun cast a tentative light through the glass facade of Jake's office, illuminating the chaos of spreadsheets strewn across his desk. Jake pushed back his chair, grappling with the decision that lay ahead. Seeking the truth was no longer just a professional obligation, it had morphed into a psychological necessity. He paced the room, each step punctuating his resolve to dissect the financial scandal that shadowed his company like a thundercloud. Questions spun in his mind, forming a chaotic web that echoed the turmoil within. Did the betrayal run deep? Had he unwittingly created an environment ripe for corruption, a breeding ground for deceit? The thought gnawed at him, compelling him to interrogate the pillars of his empire. Tentatively, he thought about confronting the lead accountant, an individual he'd previously viewed as loyal. But loyalty often masked ulterior motives, didn't it? What if this person had long been an ally of the evildoers, a double agent fostering his downfall? Jake's heart quickened at the prospect of betrayal so close to home. This moment called for the steely resolve he had come to embody, yet doubt lingered like an unwelcome guest. On a whim, Jake decided to divert his focus and walk to the design studio, where Maria was busy. Engaging with her artistic world offered clarity. As soon as he entered the studio, the air felt different, alive with creativity. Maria stood by her sketches, a captivating exploration of colors and shapes, resonating with emotions he had long ignored. The vitality of her work stirred something deep within him, a counterbalance to the cold calculations of corporate life. "Maria," he began, stepping closer to her latest design, a bold, innovative concept that seemed to pulsate with life. "Can we talk about the designs and, well, everything?" Her eyes widened with curiosity, and as they spoke, Jake felt the weight of their budding collaboration shift the trajectory of his thoughts. Maria's artistic risk-taking mirrored the inner changes he craved. He too needed to break free from the chains of fear. She proposed a radical redesign of the main office space as a visual testament to their renewed vision. Enthusiasm ignited in her voice, and for the first time, Jake glimpsed a future that merged authenticity with ambition. "So, what would it take to make this happen?" he asked, a spark of determination flaring in him. Maria's eyes glimmered with a mixture of ambition and trepidation. "We'd need materials and perhaps a small budget for materials, but it would ignite enthusiasm among our employees." Jake considered this. If he poured his resources into this creative endeavor, it would serve as a beacon of hope amid chaos. Maybe it could signal renewal, an embodiment of how he wished to redefine both the company and himself. As he absorbed her ideas, clarity began to manifest. Addressing the financial scandal couldn't only be about numbers, it had to involve rebuilding trust, starting from the ground up. Before he could slip back into chronic overthinking, Jake made a pivotal choice. "Let's create a plan. I will back your vision. We'll present it to the board as part of my effort to revamp the company." Maria's face broke into a radiant smile, and Jake felt a flicker of elation at the thought of joining forces with her. But as excitement began to settle in the pit of his stomach, the back of his mind echoed with another concern. The scandal remained unresolved. Each passing moment drew him closer to the brink. What if the chaos erupted before he could execute his vision? Compelled by an urgency building within him, Jake returned to his office. He realized that while his immediate priority was to facilitate Maria's creative ideas, he had to dive headfirst into investigating the scandal. It was time to confront the numbers head-on, to expose whatever sinister mechanisms lay beneath the surface before they unraveled everything he held dear. As Jake dialed the accountant's number, the steady rhythm of his heart intensified. The line rang, and as he prepared for what could be a pivotal confrontation, Jake knew that the reckoning could shift the balance not only of his empire but also his own identity. And just as the first hint of the scandal's truth began to echo in his mind, the phone finally connected. The moment of truth approached, and with it, Jake's future hung precariously in the balance. Would he unearth the betrayal threatening his ambitions, or would it entangle him deeper into a web of deceit? Jake could hear his pulse in his ears as the accountant picked up. "Hello, this is Tyler," came the calm voice from the other end. The contrast between the monotone greeting and the tempest of emotions swirling within Jake only heightened his sense of urgency. "Tyler, it's Jake," he managed to say, his voice steadier than he felt. "We need to talk. Can you meet me in my office?" There was a pause. "Sure, Jake. Is everything all right?" "Just make it quick," Jake replied curtly, his hands tightening around the phone as he hung up. He could almost visualize the shrouded wells of trust he had drawn from Tyler over the years, wells that now threatened to run dry under the weight of suspicion. The minutes dragged on as he prepared. Papers were shuffled, and charts scrutinized, but each second felt like an eternity. What if Tyler was involved? What if this meeting brought the very chaos Jake feared? Unease twisted his stomach into knots. Yet, as the door opened and Tyler stepped in, he sensed an opportunity for confrontation, a chance to put his doubts to rest. "Jake, you sounded urgent," Tyler said, his brow furrowing slightly. Jake took a deep breath, feeling the tension coiling through him. "I'm concerned about the financial discrepancies I've been noticing. It appears some figures don't add up. Can you explain that?" "What discrepancies?" Tyler's face morphed from confusion to guarded defensiveness. Blood rushed to Jake's head at the subtle shift, igniting the simmering doubts. "I reviewed the last quarter's budgets, and several line items don't match. I need transparency from you." The words sounded colder than intended, but he had to press. Tyler leaned against the door frame, crossing his arms. You know how the company can be, there are always misclassifications. It happens. Stop deflecting, Jake cut in. I need answers. The accountant's expression hardened. I assure you, Jake, I would never what? Compromise my trust? You've been here long enough to know it takes only one loose end to unravel everything. A flicker of fear crossed Tyler's face, yet his posture remained defiant. I've always had your back. You know that. Jake's instincts screamed at him that something was amiss. He'd invested years into fostering loyalty in his firm, but now that very foundation felt tenuous. The creating artist in him, enlivened by Maria's passion, clashed with the corporate figure he fought to be. Could he truly protect his empire if he wasn't willing to confront potential betrayal head-on? I need to know if you're part of this, he said, eyes narrowing. This isn't just a bad quarter, it's a scandal that could impact your career as much as mine. Tyler reacted instinctively, his voice dropping. You think I'm involved? It's just numbers, Jake. I didn't manipulate anything. I swear. Jake paused, reconsidering his approach. Then show me the records. I need to see them all. His tone softened, willing to give Tyler a moment of honesty. Fine, Tyler replied reluctantly. I'll pull everything together. But I need your assurance. There are people involved who what? Jake interrupted, sensing a deeper truth hidden just beneath the surface. You need to be direct. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, Tyler said, the regret in his voice barely concealed. But if they're conspiring against me? Against us? Jake pressed. You need to decide where your loyalty lies. Tyler hesitated, eyes darting as if he was weighing his options. Jake wasn't just asking for transparency, he was inviting an acknowledgement of the bond they had forged. If Tyler refused, it would shatter any illusions of trust that remained. As the silence thickened, Jake realized he was at a crossroads. Confronting hidden betrayal meant exposing his vulnerabilities, but it was perhaps the only way to secure his future. When Tyler finally spoke again, it was with palpable urgency. Okay, I'll bring the documents, but trust me when I say, this might lead to something bigger than either of us expected. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean by that? I mean, we might be in deeper than we realized. With a plan solidifying and uncertainty looming over him, Jake prepared for the rocky path ahead. Everything he had built was at stake, and now, he was facing a choice that challenged everything he believed. Would he remain an architect of trust or become an investigator of deceit? The hard truth was yet to come, and the pieces he would have to fit together were rapidly spiraling into motion. With the door swinging shut behind Tyler, Jake knew the next confrontation would test him in ways he had never anticipated. Now, a darkness loomed that could either illuminate his path or engulf him entirely. Jake sat back in his chair, the sound of Tyler's footsteps fading down the hall echoing like an unresolved chord. The air around him felt charged, as though the very walls of his office were listening. He had always prided himself on nurturing relationships built on loyalty and trust. Now, each minute spent waiting for the accountant's return magnified the vulnerability he was grappling with. His mind raced, dissecting the implications of Tyler's words. Bigger than either of us expected. What did that mean? Did it signal a conspiracy that spread beyond his immediate purview? Jake glanced at the documents scattered across his desk, the numbers blurring into an abstract representation of doubt and potential downfall. Taking a deep breath, he pushed aside the anxiety to grasp the professional helm once more. Every moment spent yielding to fear was a moment wasted. He would confront this challenge head-on. The artist in him, shaped by the chaos of creativity, demanded pragmatism now more than ever. The once invisible patterns of trust needed to be redefined, cautiously reinforced, or entirely dismantled should that be necessary. Jake reached for a notepad, determined to methodically outline what Tyler needed to present. He needed clarity, a precise breakdown of the questionable figures, the sources of discrepancies, and anyone who might be implicated in this shadowy web. The urge to draw connections, to dissect motives, began to envelop him. Each possibility spun a larger narrative, a tale of betrayal and retribution that he had to navigate with surgical precision. As clarity set in, Jake retrieved the document detailing previous audits. He rifled through pages laden with fine print and line figures, piecing together financial histories that could either prove his instincts right or plunge him further into despair. What had started as simple discrepancies transformed into a violent storm swirling deeper into the organization's fabric. In the quiet, Jake's thoughts roamed to the day he first dreamt of founding his firm. The fires of ambition had ignited his spirit. Now, uncertainty threatened to extinguish them. He had always envisioned a path where creativity and business intersected without sacrificing integrity, where success didn't rest on the betrayal of others. But what if that ideal was merely a facade, hiding the true nature of those he trusted most? The solitude of his office, filled with half-finished ideas and unanswered questions, felt stifling as he grappled with the stakes of his next moves. There was no denying it, the shadows weren't just external but had begun to seep into his core, testing his leadership and moral compass. As the clock ticked on, Jake felt an urge to reconnect with Maria. Her perspective, marked by artistic intuition and emotional clarity, could provide a different lens through which he could understand his plight. It was amazing how her passion reminded him of the fundamental values he cherished. Even in the depths of turmoil, she represented the brightness of creativity intertwined with purpose. Jake. Maria's voice broke through his thoughts as she appeared at the door, her expression lighting with concern. I heard you needed to meet Tyler. Is everything okay? He paused, a flicker of doubt in his mind battling with a resolve to be open. Not yet. We're in the midst of something complicated. I need to figure out if I can trust him. She stepped inside, her curiosity palpable. What do you really think is happening? Honestly? Jake leaned back, weighing how much to reveal. It could potentially go beyond mismanagement. If it's corruption. Talking about everything I've built. My vision's at stake. Her eyes widened, reflecting a mix of fear and understanding. But we can face it, right? You have the ability to lead through chaos. Her belief in him energized him. Yes, but it's going to take more than just strength. I might need your help to navigate the complex landscape this could become. Whatever you need, she assured him, her determination radiating. There was a strength in there. Collective drive, sparking a renewed focus within him. The clock signaled the return of Tyler again, the moment looming like a silent specter. Jake inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of not just numbers, but lives intertwined and futures hanging in balance. And as the door creaked open, he prepared himself to confront not only the man before him but the possibility of betrayal scarier than he had ever imagined. Would he emerge fortified in his values or tangled in a web he never meant to weave? The moment had arrived, and Jake braced himself for the truth that awaited him. Jake's heart raced as he regarded Tyler's entrance, each step echoing with the weight of unspoken truths. Tyler's face, usually composed, bore the mark of distress. The accounting firm's lead had always been a man of numbers, meticulous and calculated. Now, a hint of something raw lingered beneath his professional facade. Jake, Tyler began, smoothing the front of his shirt, a common gesture that signified his habitual need to regain control. We need to talk. The words hung heavy in the air, almost tangible. Jake nodded, gesturing for Tyler to take a seat. He could feel the potential fallout from this meeting crackling between them, setting the stage for their confrontation. I went over the figures, Tyler stated, pausing to gather his thoughts. There are discrepancies larger than what we first indicated. Multiple accounts have been manipulated. Jake leaned forward, curiosity sharpening his focus. Who's behind it? It can't just be an accounting error. This points to a systematic issue. Tyler's nervousness morphed into frustration. That's what I'm trying to understand. It looks like it's intentional, Jake. Someone has been keeping a lid on this, and I fear it's connected to higher-ups in the firm. Jake's chest tightened. The implication was a gut punch. He had suspected disloyalty within his ranks, but now it felt palpable, like a shroud weighing him down. Who? He pressed, urgency infusing his words. We need names. Tyler hesitated, his face reflecting the turmoil of his revelations. I can't say for certain, but the signatures on some documents belong to people in positions of power. It could go as high as... Jake cut him off, frustration boiling over. Don't leave it hanging. As high as who, Tyler? You have to give me something concrete. As high as your business partner, Greg. The name struck like thunder, reverberating through his mind. Greg, whose laughter filled the halls, whose ambition matched Jake's own. They had weathered storms together, forged through challenges as a unit. The idea that Greg, of all people, could be tangled in a treachery so deep, felt unfathomable. Are you sure? Jake's voice, though commanding, trembled on the edges. This could ruin my vision, and everything we've built. Tyler met his gaze, the weight of his truth thickening the air. Jake, I wouldn't say this if I didn't believe it. The audits don't lie, and whatever's going on, it's been laid bare. You have to confront him. As uncertainty surged within him, Jake weighed his options. He could bury his head in the sand, willing to dismiss the alarming evidence, or confront the specter looming over his company. The choice bore down on him: address the betrayal, or possibly lose everything. Outside, he watched rain begin to steadily drum against the window, reflecting the storm inside him. Unsettled by the thought of jumping into confrontation with Greg without all the details, his instinct urged caution. But the very essence of his leadership was at stake. Fine, he said slowly, the resolve sharpening in his voice. I'll need to gather more information before I go see Greg. If what you say is true, I can't approach him without a solid plan. Jake, Tyler cautioned, this is no longer just about numbers, it's about survival, yours, mine, and the integrity of this company. You need to move quickly. Jake nodded, the responsibility mounting visibly within him. He had started this journey with dreams of artistry merging seamlessly with integrity, and now it felt as if those ambitions hung by a thread. The man he trusted most might turn out to be the greatest threat. Get me a detailed report on the discrepancies, and I'll handle the confrontation, Jake said, each word carefully chosen to balance authority and fear. Tyler stood, a newfound energy coursing between them as he understood the gravity of his role in this impending reckoning. I'll get to work on it. But you have to be prepared for what you may uncover. Jake stared out the window, contemplating the battle lines drawn around him. Strength was no longer about just numbers or creative visions, it was about understanding the depths of trust and betrayal. Could he lead his firm beyond this, or would it lead to his demise? As Tyler left his office and the door clicked shut, Jake took a moment to breathe. But the pressure was mounting, a sudden sense of urgency to act before the betrayals could fester. His phone buzzed, jolting him back to reality. It was Maria. Are you okay? Her message read, an anchor amid his turbulent thoughts. He typed back swiftly, we need to meet. Things just got complicated. The steps toward unraveling what lay ahead had begun, but the greater question loomed, would he emerge a champion of his values, or a victim of treachery? The battle had only just begun, and with each tick of the clock, Jake sensed the stakes rising. Would he confront Greg head-on, or would he uncover a different path that would alter everything he thought he knew? Jake paced the confines of his office, the rain outside now a relentless downpour, mirroring his internal chaos. Each drop sparked a question: how had he missed the signs? Greg had always seemed trustworthy, his ambitions aligned with Jake's vision for the firm. The betrayal stung more than he cared to admit, leaving a bitter taste in his mouth. The weight of leadership pressed down on him, heavier than ever. He had built a reputation based on integrity, creativity, and dedication. But now, every achievement felt tainted by the possibility that his closest ally could morph into a public adversary. Even as he spiraled into doubt, a flicker of determination ignited within him. He could no longer function solely as a driven entrepreneur, he needed to become a strategist and a detective. Gathering information was not just an option, it was imperative. He could not risk confronting Greg without the bulletproof shield of evidence. Reaching for his laptop, Jake began typing an email to Tyler, detailing the specific discrepancies that needed to be focused on first. His fingers flew across the keyboard, drafting a list of pertinent questions. What accounts needed further scrutiny? How deep did the manipulation go? He would need to delve into the firm's inner workings like never before, methodically dissecting the financial records that had once felt as routine as breathing. As he hit send, Jake's phone chimed again. It was Maria, curious yet concerned. Are you sure I can't help? It read. The offer tugged at him. She had never wavered, always being his sounding board during corporate storms. There was an undeniable comfort in her support, but it also made him hesitant. Sharing this chaos with her risked pulling her into a mess he hadn't yet unraveled. Still, there was a yearning to confide in someone who understood him not just as a businessman but as a person. He crafted a response, careful not to divulge every detail but hinting at the turmoil enveloping him. I appreciate it, but this is more complicated than it seems. I'll keep you updated. Closing his eyes, he leaned back, allowing himself a brief moment of reflection. Maria had always believed in his vision, and maybe discussing the situation could offer a fresh perspective. Resolved, Jake rose from his chair. He committed to exploring the potential gaps in their financial records alone, but he could confront Greg with at least one ally beside him, someone to help navigate the treachery and weigh sound judgments along the way. The next few hours blurred together as he pored over spreadsheets and reports, tracing patterns and discrepancies. With each new finding, his resolve solidified. He wouldn't charge into Greg's office without a plan, this much was certain. In the midst of his research, an unsettling thought crept in: could Greg be manipulating numbers to frame him? A knot twisted in his stomach at the possibility. Suddenly, he noticed something peculiar. One specific account had a history of irregular activities, something Tyler had not mentioned. A thought flickered to life. What if this wasn't just a betrayal by Greg but a ploy that entangled others in the firm? The clicking of keys filled the silence as Jake swiftly captured the details, compiling everything into a cohesive argument, while each piece of evidence ignited a palpable sense of urgency. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Without waiting for a response, it swung open. It was Tyler, visibly anxious. I've got the report, he said, urgency radiating from his expression. Jake gestured for him to sit, the pieces of the puzzle swirling ominously in his mind. We need to talk about what I found, he replied, an edge to his voice. As they dived deeper into the numbers and discrepancies, Jake's intensity sharpened. The truth was lurking around every corner of the firm, and the stakes had just risen significantly. Jake, Tyler began haltingly, there's more we need to discuss. But what Tyler didn't realize was that with every revelation, Jake's understanding was evolving. He wasn't merely a victim in this, he was rising to reclaim his stake. As they absorbed the gravity of their findings, Jake felt a foreboding tension stir in the air. The time for action was looming, but would the revelations lead him to redemption or further despair? With a heavy heart laden with determination, Jake prepared himself for the confrontation that lay ahead, eyes locked on the door to his past. It was time to face the betrayal, but first, he had to uncover the bigger game at play. Would he emerge from the ashes as a leader redefined, or would the fire consume him? Jake's heart raced as he leaned back, processing both the report Tyler had brought and the unsettling evidence he had uncovered. The air in the room felt electric, charged with a mixture of anxiety and possibility. He had spent long hours in solitude, wrestling with his thoughts, and now he was poised for something monumental. Tyler, Jake said, his voice steadier than he felt. We need to consolidate everything we have. If Greg is indeed playing us, we have to be one step ahead. Tyler nodded, his brow furrowed with concentration. What's your plan? Confront him with what we have? Jake shook his head. Not yet. We need more. This is too risky. I don't want to confront him only to be blindsided by something he's already prepared for. As they delved deeper into the discrepancies, Jake felt a disturbing clarity emerge. Each anomaly they unearthed built on the last, revealing a web of deceit that seemed to ensnare several members of his own team. It made his stomach churn. How had Greg managed to gain that much power, to cultivate such quiet disloyalty. It was a betrayal that transcended mere financial manipulation. It was a personal affront, like a dagger to his very essence as a leader. "Look at this," Tyler stated, pointing to a series of transaction logs on the screen. "These operations lead to an untraceable account. There's no record of who initiated them." "Untraceable?" Jake breathed, feeling the implications wash over him like ice water. "We need to figure out where those funds are going, or who they're going to." "Could it be someone else in the firm?" Tyler questioned, equally alarmed. "It wouldn't surprise me." "I need to think like Greg," Jake replied, his mind racing. They needed a plan, one that would allow him to confront Greg not only for the betrayal but also to reclaim control over the narrative. And for that, he needed allies, not just inside the firm but also those outside its walls. "I want you to start digging into potential connections Greg might have outside of the company. Look for anyone who could benefit from this mess," Jake instructed, his tone firm. "We need leverage." Tyler nodded, determination in his eyes. "I'll do it." As Tyler began pulling together the information they'd amassed, Jake found his thoughts returning to Maria. She had always been his confidant, the one person who had supported him unconditionally. But this situation felt so convoluted, so steeped in treachery. Yet, the urge to share what he knew, to let her into this descending chaos, tugged persistently at his conscience. He glanced at the clock. It was late, but the office was still abuzz with the dull hum of late-night energy. The city beyond the glass windows was drenched in rain and shadow, much like his thoughts. In a moment of impulsiveness, he sent Maria a message that was both an invitation and a warning. "Can we meet? I need to talk about the firm. There's something important brewing." As he hit send, a flicker of uncertainty coursed through him. Was he inviting her into a vortex of turmoil? Yet he reminded himself that this was as much about his personal growth as it was about the firm. The very act of reaching out was a step toward not just addressing the threats around him but also reaffirming the bonds he held dear. "Jake!" Tyler called, breaking him free from his reflection. "I think I found something else." Jake's heart quickened again as he shifted his focus, understanding now that the path to reclaiming his company was fraught with complexity. Each revelation would not only involve confronting betrayal but would ultimately challenge his beliefs and values as a leader. As they reviewed the new findings, Jake felt a shift within himself. He was no longer just a man faced with duplicity, he was a strategist, actively transforming his approach to conflict, ready to steer his ship through the storm. "Prepare the materials for our meeting with Greg," Jake instructed, a newfound assertiveness coursing through his words. It's time for him to understand the stakes. But deep down, he recognized the gravity of the confrontation ahead. 2. Face Greg would require more than evidence. It would demand that Jake tap into parts of himself he had not yet fully explored. What he didn't know was just how much he would unearth about himself in the process. And as he steeled himself for what lay ahead, a thought crept in: was there more at play here than simple betrayal? As shadows gathered around him, Jake braced for the truth he was about to confront, unaware that it would push him to his very limits. The question echoed in his mind: was he aware of everything he would discover about himself in the coming days? The clock ticked steadily, each second emphasizing the gravity of Jake's situation. He felt as if he were balancing on the edge of a precipice, where one misstep could lead to his downfall. Yet, in that tension, he began to find a strange kind of clarity. It was an inflection point, an opportunity for profound personal development, and he could sense it in his bones. "Let's take a second to step back before we dig too deep into Greg," Jake suggested, forcing himself to breathe and refocus. Tyler looked at him, questioning but compliant. "I want to map this out. What we're facing is a psychological game just as much as it is a financial one. The stakes are personal, too." The idea of preparing a powerful strategy ignited something within him. Jake had always prided himself on his informed decision-making, his instinct for business. But now, he needed to cultivate a deeper understanding of human dynamics: how ambition warped loyalties, how deceit manifested among those who should have been allies. He spread out the reports across the table, his eyes scanning columns of numbers, names that had become more than mere entries in a ledger. They were pieces on this chessboard of corporate warfare. Tyler, I want to understand what each of these discrepancies means. Each figure tells a story, and each story could reveal vulnerabilities in Greg's game plan. They began dissecting the transactions, each anomaly serving as an entry into Greg's psyche. With every detail they analyzed, Jake felt his confidence steadying. He began to realize that becoming a more formidable leader required a genuine comprehension of his adversaries not just tactically, but emotionally. Look at this one, Tyler pointed out, excitement creeping into his voice. This transaction occurred just after a particularly heated board meeting. What if it's a reaction to pressure? Jake nodded, feeling the gears in his mind turning. It serves as a reflection of Greg's character. He reacts to stress with uncalculated risk. We can leverage that against him. As they worked late into the night, they shared a renewed sense of purpose. The furtive conversations and exchanged glances suggested teamwork beyond mere professional duty. They were allies bound by a common cause. Jake recognized he was transforming, not just into a soldier in this corporate battle, but into a leader who could inspire loyalty and courage. Yet as he pieced together this newfound strength, his thoughts drifted back to Maria. When had he last truly connected with someone, shared the burden of his vulnerabilities? The urge to protect her from the storm he was navigating wrestled with the need for companionship. Did he need her perspective to strengthen his trust in his allies, or would he ultimately drive her away by dragging her into this world of deceit? A notification pinged on his phone. She had responded, "I'll meet you. Just tell me when and where." A rush of warmth washed over him, mixed with a slight chill of dread. He desperately wanted her insight, her unwavering support, yet he feared what truths he might inadvertently unveil in the process. "Let us meet with Greg tomorrow," Jake suddenly declared, stifling the whirlwind of uncertainty that threatened to overwhelm him. "Afterward, I'll see Maria. I'll need her support, but first, I must lay the groundwork." Tyler nodded, sensing the weight of the moment. "You know confronting Greg is going to be volatile." Jake stood straighter, a newfound determination etched on his face. "I won't shy away. If I want to lead, I must face the fire." And in that resolve, he began to understand the essence of true leadership, not just fortitude against the storms but the courage to be vulnerable and recognize the allies who could help guide him through. But as he prepared for the showdown, a nagging doubt remained, whispering incessantly, was he truly ready for the revelations that awaited him both in the boardroom and within himself? With the dawn approaching, Jake steeled himself for what the next day would bring. He would confront Greg, but would he emerge not just as a survivor of the betrayal but as a transformed leader? He sensed the answer lay not just in the success of the confrontation, but in how he chose to rise above the turmoil that ensued. The following day, the fluorescent lights of the boardroom buzzed overhead as Jake barged through the doors, leading with a purposeful stride. The air was thick with unspoken tension, the reality of what was about to unfold hanging like a cloud over everyone present. Greg sat at the head of the table, his expression a carefully crafted mask of indifference, yet Jake could sense the undercurrents of anxiety rippling beneath. "Jake," Greg greeted, feigning a relaxed demeanor. "What brings you here unexpectedly, I might add?" Jake cleared his throat, drawing upon the emotional fortitude that had blossomed through the tumultuous weeks preceding this moment. "We need to discuss the financial discrepancies within the firm," he said, leveling his gaze at Greg. "There's been manipulation of accounts, and it appears to run deeper than either of us anticipated." The atmosphere shifted. All eyes turned toward Greg, whose confident facade began to crack as the weight of Jake's words settled in. "These things happen, Jake. Misclassifications can be easily misclassifications." Jake cut in, refusing to sidestep the truth any longer. "This is intentional negligence. I've seen the numbers, and I know that someone close to me has orchestrated this scandal." Jake's heart thrummed violently in his chest, but he stood firm, recalling the confidence exemplified by Maria in her artistic representations. "I'm not here to let this slide. I need answers, now." Greg's expression faltered momentarily before morphing into a hardened glare. "You're making a grave mistake, accusing me. I'm not just accusing." Jake leaned forward, his voice low yet resolute. "I'm prepared to back my claims with evidence, and I refuse to let you sabotage my vision for this company anymore. A palpable realization flickered in the room. Jake was no longer just a pawn in a corporate game. He had risen to take the lead. Greg realized too late the resolve igniting Jake's every word, and as the confrontation unfolded, doubt and fear etched themselves onto his face. Jake, please. You don't know what you're getting into. This isn't just you and me, it involves everyone, Greg warned, desperation weaving through his tone. Then let us make it everyone, Jake retorted, each statement forging his new identity as a leader unwilling to tolerate disloyalty. I'll disclose everything unless you bring clarity to this cloud of deception. It's time for transparency. As Jake unfolded the intricate web of betrayals and confronted Greg directly, he felt an unfamiliar surge of empowerment. The past weeks had prepared him to confront corporate malfeasance, but they had also forged a new version of himself, one driven by honesty and integrity. The room crackled with tension as Greg's defenses crumbled. You wouldn't dare expose our dirty laundry, he spat, yet Jake detected the faintest tremor in his voice. You'll ruin us. Or perhaps save us, Jake countered. The truth must be revealed. I refuse to lead a company that thrives on fear and deceit. I'll turn it into a beacon of integrity. With the confrontation reaching a critical juncture, Jake realized that this battle was not just about the financial discrepancies, it was an internal purge of everything he had built his empire upon. He had learned that true leadership required authenticity, vulnerability, and the courage to face the truth, even when it stung. As Greg simmered in frustration, the door swung open, revealing Tyler with a dossier of documents. I managed to retrieve the records, he announced, unceremoniously placing them on the table, the sound echoing like finality. The truth was laid bare. Jake stood back, ready to embrace the consequences of this moment, no matter how daunting. Confrontation had transformed him, bringing to light not just the flaws within his company but the strengths he never knew he possessed as a leader, a protector of vision instead of a victim of circumstance. Days later, seated in his office, Jake felt an unfamiliar serenity take hold. The storm had passed, and he was no longer just a figure of power, he was a figure of integrity. The financial scandal had exposed not just corruption, but it had revealed his own capacity for resilience, innovation, and growth. His partnership with Maria blossomed as they stepped into a new era of creativity and teamwork, embracing the vision of a company reborn through transformation. The responsibility for the company and its transformation now rested in his hands, all steered by profound personal growth that flowed freely into every layer of the business. Jake looked at the skyline once more, but this time it was no longer just a mere reflection of his empire. It was a symbol of a personal journey of transformation, a testament to choosing authenticity over the allure of unchecked ambition. With gratitude and resilience, he prepared for the upcoming challenges, ready to build a legacy defined not by wealth but by the integrity of its foundation. And as he moved forward, Jake was not merely a titan of industry, he was now a champion of dreams and truth woven into every stitch of his renewed vision. The path ahead gleamed with possibility, a bright future grounded in honesty, creativity, and the strength of authentic relationships. To those who have witnessed this transformative journey, take action now. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support, and don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories know the importance of backing this channel.